Another lunch and learn. Let's go. Today, hyper local listing presentation. Lots to cover. So glad you made it. This one is one class I certainly wish I had when I started. And as usual, you can grab the class notes simply by texting the word box1 to our phone number, and then you will get a one-pager that looks something like that with all the notes. So you have it. Again, that is going to show up later again today. So don't worry, I'll show the slide again. But these notes are truly condensing everything we're going to talk about, which you see there is quite a bit of stuff, right? So I'm really excited. We'll get to talk a lot about the listing presentation. I feel like it's this elusive thing nobody wants to talk about. So I'm going to show you mine. And because slides are always better when they're fully displayed, I'm going to go and make them full screen so you have them. Again, if you're just hopping on, welcome to yet another Lunch and Learn that's really here to give you actionable things. And one of the things I always want to point out is that I want to hear your feedback. I show up in a very closed container in my office, and because of that, I love to get Google reviews as feedback as much as possible, and it helps other people to know if this is just another hypey webinar or if you actually are learning something, which is my personal goal, and I'm going to tell you in a minute why. So you can get a link that will lead you to our Google review page just by texting the word review. Making it easy for you is the goal with it. And we do send out a free box of all of the people that leave a review because your time is certainly valuable. I always recommend people do that now, because if you cannot stay the entire 60 minutes, at least you have this here and can get some free stuff. All right. Now, today I'm going to show you a real strategy to win listings. And it's probably the most important one because, yes, we are talking about the listing appointment and how to walk out of there with the listing. It's kind of the point, right? If you got the email earlier, I was telling you about my first listing presentation. And well, I don't know if you remember yours, but mine did not go as planned. Shocking, I'm sure. I learned a whole lot since then. I have been on hundreds of listing appointments at this point. I just looked at my profile the other day with hundreds of sales. So yes, hundreds of listing appointments. And I will say I got a little better at it over the years. So I'm going to share with you a lot of that. Of course, there is our disclaimer. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. This is streamed nationally, and because of that, you are responsible for your own state laws. This is not surprising, I'm sure, to most of you, but now you know. And if you have not met me, hi, I'm Janine. I'm going to be your host for today. We do run these Lunch and Learns every single Monday for free, nationally for agents, because I'm a big believer in there needs to be a how-to, right? Step by step. There needs to be actual implementation-based content and not just hypey, salesy webinars. So we have created a movement of hyperlocal agents, people that want to lean in and become the go-to agent in their neighborhood. I am a licensed instructor, so you do see a lot of training that is coming from that part. I am also a full-time agent, so I am in the field with you. I know what the market is doing. I'm also the creator of GeoCentral, which is an all-in-one platform for agents focused on geographic farming. And today we are going to cover a couple things. Looks like I didn't update those. But today is all about the steps on a listing appointment, every single step. We're not going to leave anything up to chance. There's a lot of things we're going to cover. If you do want your own notes, even though I just offered you my cheat sheet, right? You can get a workbook download it at the hyperlocalagent.com/workbook. There's no opt-in required. There's a couple additional resources we added to it. So by all means, feel free to grab that one if you like to take notes. I'm a note taker personally. I'm also a doodler, so I doodle a whole lot. But this helps you stay focused. I know focus is a hard one when you have a phone nearby. So what you put in is what you put out. We're all grown-ups here. So let's start with story time. Do you remember your first listing appointment? Right? I already hinted on mine. And yes, I remember it. I was literally reading off the things word by word from a listing presentation I printed from my broker's website. It was awful and awkward. And needless to say, I didn't get the listing. But this really led to my first listing presentation 1.0 that I started to put together. And listing presentation 1.0 has seen many, many upgrades at this time. And I want to share with you some of the most important ones that we added in, why we created it, and why I think it was such an important part. So I also remember my very first manager, and he told me his story. His story went something like that. He booked a listing presentation and he showed up, and what he did next was like mind-blowing to me. He took out a sign from his trunk, he stuck it in the yard, and then walked to the front door like it was a done deal. Mind you, he hadn't talked to these people yet at that point. That was when real estate agents were driving around with signs in their trunk. Yes, just like that. He stuck it right there in the front yard and said, all right, my signs are in the ground. So let's talk about how we're going to do this. And I just thought, wow, talk about confidence, right? And this is exactly where we are going to start. And I think it was one of the very first takeaways I had from my own personal first listing appointment. I want you to meet Ape. And yes, Ape, our gorilla right here, is an abbreviation that stands for attention, power, and energy. So you've heard the talk, right? That listings are the name of the game, and that it's generally true because you can service 3 times as many listings as buyers, and therefore, well, make more money. So what do listing agents bring to the table? And I want you to think about this monkey every time you walk into the door, okay? Ape. I want you to be that ape. I want you to be that silverback gorilla, right? I want you to think about you are just owning this appointment. The confidence itself is super, super important, right? But confidence itself is something that comes naturally as you get more, well, experienced, confident. So if you can't really focus on that, what can you focus on? And that is how Ape started, right? Attention, power, and energy. Attention, power, and energy are all variables that are controllable by you. So first up, right, attention. All of this, you pay attention to them. That is important. Oh, let me go back one more. Attention to the person in front of you seems to be a lost art. Looking people in the eyes, right? Focusing in on them. And not just paying attention to them, but also paying attention to their belongings. There is another class we've done, and I'll show you the class schedule momentarily, that talked about what clues a house can actually give you. What clues could be there if there's a lot of family pictures around? What clues could you collect if the wife is wearing some very colorful earrings? Okay, we've talked a lot about that in a different class that I teach for Lunch and Learns. I believe we have one of them coming up, but again, attention is a big one. Okay, power. Who's in charge of the conversation? This is naturally something that you will fall into, that you are leading the conversation. If they're leading you to the couch, you're going to be leading them to a table. Okay. If there's no table available, obviously, yes, please have a seat at the couch. And then energy. You are in control of your energy. So coming in there excited, right? Pumped up, ready to help them. You can control the energy that you bring to the table when you sit down with a potential seller. And it comes down to confidence, right? When you are certain about the price, because you know the neighborhood stats inside and out, you do handle listing appointments better because you simply are more confident. And that ties right back to our hyperlocal principle. It's a big reason that I shifted from trying to be everywhere in the early stages of my career to just being hyperlocal. Because now that I can honestly tell them, actually, I've been in this house. Actually, I know where this is. Actually, I'm familiar with the model, right? You have so many more ways to actually portray that you're confident. It's not just being confident about the listing. It's also being comfortable about the comparables. Comfortable that you're doing it with the right pricing in mind, right? Rather than just guessing how much a buyer is potentially thinking about paying, you have the opportunity to let them know, hey, I can tell a buyer why I think this and this. And this is shifting that entire conversation around where they see you as this hyper local expert. So growing in confidence can be expedited if you're not trying to be everything for everyone and everywhere. Now, first things first, every listing appointment has two components. So we're going to go a little bit through the structure of what I think makes a very, very good listing presentation. So if you have one, right, by all means, look at it and be like, yes, this is how I do it, or that's not how I do it. Maybe I should change it around. And maybe your way is better, right? But this is just what I've learned over the course of almost a decade doing listing appointments this way. So what are these two components? Anybody got a guess? Well, first one's going to be talking about marketing. Marketing a listing is one of the components that you should be discussing when you sit down with a seller. The marketing of it is what makes you unique, right? What are you doing, other than the basics, obviously, but what are you doing to really make sure that this listing will end up selling? Because you and I both know the MLS does not sell listings. If the MLS was to sell listings, we wouldn't have a job. But the MLS does not sell listings. The MLS is a tool that we use to collaborate, but it doesn't sell listings. So the first component that your listing presentation needs to have is the component of the marketing. The second component, that is pricing. That's right. That's why you're there in the first place, right? They want to know, how much can I get for my house based on current comps? What's a realistic expectation? So those are the two parts that your listing listing presentation should have incorporated. If you have that one, give me a thumbs up, say yes. If you are on here live, you have a chat bubble. And if you don't see it, it's okay. You can just nod internally for yourself. Now, first up, let's talk about the type of listing appointment and what you could do. If you've never heard the term one-step listing appointment versus two-step listing appointment, I just want to define it for you real quick, since we have agents from different walks of life. Some of you have been in the business for a while, some of you are pretty new. So a one-step listing appointment, it's just that, right? You stop into the seller's home one time to give them everything there is. You'll go over the marketing you do, you go over the pricing during the same appointment. And since you're a hyperlocal agent, this actually does not pose a problem for you because you're so familiar with the inventory. I still to this date have sellers who look at me and they are asked, "You have a price already?" And it's like, "Yes, I do, sir." Right? I have been in every single house. Knowing what your home is worth is a matter of knowing the inventory, and there's nobody better than me that knows the inventory. This is a simple way for me to demonstrate my hyperlocal expertise with a one-step listing appointment. Now, when you are newer, or if you are doing business in a market that is extremely unique, meaning there might be a lot going on with the house that requires extensive research and you really understanding what they have, right? You may go over the marketing only during the first appointment, take the notes based on what they tell you, and then you schedule a follow-up appointment to discuss the pricing. And this could be done either by in-person appointment, you could do it over Zoom, you could do it over phone. The two-step listing appointment has the benefit of giving you additional time with that seller. Do you need it? That depends. You will learn how to read people. Again, in many, many cases, I will do a one-step listing appointment simply because my neighborhood makes it easy for me to know what is this home likely going to sell for. And the big question is, which one is better, right? At the end of the day, you are the one that is the driving factor. You can put both of these into, a relation of this one is the way I do it, and this has the benefit of X, Y, and Z, or I do the other one because, and then all the benefits that this one has. Is there one that's better? I don't think there is, but you have to choose which one works for you and which one you are more comfortable in. And we're going to talk a little bit about the what not to do. I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me what not to do on a listing appointment. So I included this section and hopefully you'll find it helpful. What I suggest you do not do is give the sellers what they want, which is how much is my house worth? Because when you give them that price, they most likely will not listen to you any longer. Okay? When a number comes out of your mouth, that seller is only focused on that. It doesn't matter all the marketing you do. It doesn't matter this. It doesn't matter that, right? The seller has a number, and that's the only thing they want to talk on from here on out. So this is one of the things I recommend you do not do right out of the gate. This is why we have two components to our listing presentation: marketing and pricing. So if you cannot start with pricing because they will not pay attention to you anymore, right? You must start with marketing as the number one rule of what you should consider talking about when you sit down with a seller. First things first, before we sit down, there's a couple other things we want to do. What are these things? Well, take a tour of the home first, right? If they do not offer you to take a look at their house, but they want to sit down with you and they want to talk about the house and talk about the pricing, you have to put that APE in place. Remember, we just talked about APE, right? Attention, power, energy. This is one of the power moves. If they do not offer you to tour the house, it is your responsibility to simply ask them, do you mind if we have a quick look around the house? Because you need to know what you're working with. They will be bombarding you with questions such as, well, we need to know, do you think we should paint? And do you think we should do this? And do you think we should do that? And I always tell my clients that I will give them all the answers, but I have to see the entire house first and foremost. So take a tour of that house. Make this part of your thing before you sit down. If they offer you a glass of water, say yes, even if you're not thirsty. Yes, we'll talk to that part later. And then again, we're going to remove pricing from the equation because that is a big part of why agents are not getting listings, because their pricing was too low or it was lower than somebody else's. Okay. So we're going to remove pricing from the equation of decision making. And with that move alone, you are much more likely to get them to say yes to work with you. So it'll be an exciting one to talk about. So far, are we doing good? I know, I told you this was rapid fire. There's a lot of little notes that you can take from here on out. It is not a hypey class. It is all actionable, what you can apply in the field when you sit down with a seller in this market. So I know so many of you are like, hold on, aren't you there for the pricing? How do you remove pricing from the equation? We're going to talk about that part. As far as the water is concerned, I don't know if I have a separate slide on here for it. I don't think I do. So let me talk about the water part real quick. Why do you say yes to the water? When you say yes to a glass of water, it humanizes you. It lets them know that you are a very real person that has needs, does things such as drink water. So again, if they offer you something, and in some cultures it's considered rude to say no, so just say yes. All right. So how do we remove the pricing? Some of you are probably wondering, okay, is this even possible? Isn't that the whole reason that you're sitting there, right? It's kind of like my hidden little super trick here. And the way we do it is with an analogy that we call cape. C-A-P-E, cape, like a Superman cape, right? Hence there's a little super dog. Plus he was cute and I wanted him in my presentation. So how do you remove the pricing? This is where I want you to become the superhero of this story. CAPE, C-A-P-E, it's just a nice little way to remember it. C stands for condition. Now, let me ask you, who is responsible for the condition of the property? Is it you or is it them? Because the answer is, it's them. It is their house, therefore they are responsible for the condition of the home that you're currently reviewing for pricing. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, condition of the house is going to be one of the things we're evaluating based on current comparables. There is one. Number 2, access. How easily can a property be shown? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when would you like to have showings? So again, let me ask you, who is responsible for the access component of this entire listing? Also, the seller. While you can suggest something that you recommend they do, at the end of the day, the seller is in charge of determining when will I allow showings to happen. The next one, P, price. All right, now it gets interesting. Who is responsible for setting the price of the property? Is it you or is it the seller? I know this trips up a lot of people. Price is actually set by the seller. I'm sure you've heard it before. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there's 3 outcomes, right? You could price it as high as possible, at which point I would probably shake your hand and we're not going to do business together. You can price it as low as possible, which also would not be recommended by me, or you can price it at my recommended price, at which point we will likely have this outcome. So who is setting the price? Also, the seller. And if you look at these 3 letters so far, C-A-P, CAP, right? These are seller responsibilities. This is why a seller is in charge of what happens with the house when it hits the market. This is not on you. All right, any guesses what the E is for? Exposure. Exposure is the one thing that they're actually interviewing you for. So did we just remove pricing? from the equation? Yes, we did. And exposure leads you into marketing the property, which is now the first component that you're going to be discussing. And one of the things I did early on subconsciously is I named my listing style. Yes, there is a listing style I have. And I have a couple different options here for you, right? Obviously, name your style that is based on you, how you are as a person. But what is really your goal when you sit down with the seller? Is it to make listing their home easy? Make listing their home fun? Is it to make sure they get the most amount of money possible, right? Are you known as the home value maximizer? Are you there to expose that home to the most buyers possible, right? Are you there for that media storm? Or are you there for the white glove service from start to finish? Everything's handled, right? Every one of us has a certain style of what we would like to be viewed for that seller. And yes, you have a mix of all four styles or more, I'm sure, within, but at the core of it, what do you think your personal listing style is? And I always recommend name your presentation, right? All right, we're going to go over this one because at the end of the day, this is what I think my job is for you. Very, very simple. So, your company's listing presentation. Let's talk about that. So many of you are from all walks of life, different companies, and most companies provide their agent a listing presentation. In fact, that's the one I used for my first listing presentation that absolutely flopped. But even though it flopped, it gave me something very interesting. It gave me a skeleton structure to what I now have in place. So that skeleton structure just got fleshed out more. I got, really good at putting things into my own words, because if I don't write those words, it's really hard for me to do a presentation. Think about back in, school days when you had to do a presentation in front of class and you were just not putting things in your own words, right? It just didn't hit the same. And again, it's a great starting point for your future listing presentation, the 2.0, the 8.0, the 25.0. But it's a good skeleton structure that if you're brand new, start out with that. Start out with it and look at it. If you are a seasoned agent and you don't have a listing presentation because, well, I've never needed one, right? I always just talk to people. This is great, but at the same time, with more options, you may want to have something in your back pocket. Or if you have been sphere of influence driven, always been a relationship-based marketing agent where you just listed friends and family, right? And you're like, I don't want to sit down with them and do a formal listing presentation. But if you get to a cold target audience, people that don't know you, right? A hyper local market, you're not going to know every single neighbor. It's important for you to have something that is repeatable, a system that you can apply over and over and over. So some of the ones that were on there were company values, company tools, company history, company market share, company marketing plan. Those are just some of the basic ones that I drew out of most any company's listing presentation. And the flow of it was very much driven on the brokerage. So when I say skeleton structure, this is one of the reasons that I highly suggest you're going to talk about more than just the company values, the brokerage values. You're going to have to start talking about what these sellers really want to hear, right? Which is, what does it mean for me? So let's talk about some hyperlocal elements that you can bring into your listing presentations. And of course, first up, there's pictures and videos. Listing presentations should feel hyperlocal, because when they feel hyperlocal, the seller starts recognizing things within the presentation. That might be a picture of a specific site. Okay, this might be a picture of the town name that they're in. Another part is listing descriptions, pointing out how listing descriptions can make or break a buyer's decision to come and view the property. Remember, there's the pictures, but then there's also the words. And sometimes, right, words can tell an amazing story. Then there's the advertisement component. For me, that's a lot of the postcards, the marketing material. I always suggest make sure you have real examples in there if you've been in business for a while. And if you're brand new, create a couple that you're intending to use for these sellers. And then the fourth component is any announcements or awards you have in a credibility building fashion. Okay, not just like, oh, look at me, but in a credibility building fashion. Like, you can do that even with pictures of you receiving an award. You can do that in a lot of different ways throughout the presentation that doesn't scream, look at me, I'm amazing, right? Because that's weird. So what I don't think helps here is putting all these crazy letters after your name, because the consumer just has no idea what they mean. So if you want to talk about all these wonderful letters and credentials that you've earned, make sure that you pointed out, hey, by the way, I did go through extra training, which allowed me to earn my senior real estate designation. And what this really means is that the resources I have available for that specific demographic are beyond what any other agent without the credentials has access to. And that is now something that will benefit them. Okay, so just one example for it. Now, another hyperlocal element is here an example, a screenshot of all the homes you have sold in the area. This can truly help them understand how hyperlocal you truly are. This could be your own personal listings if you've been in business for a while. This could be you having a conversation with your broker and saying, hey, has our company sold any other listings? And if so, could I include this in my listing presentation for credibility? You can do that obviously in any town you want, right? But the goal here is to focus in on hyper locally. Another hyperlocal element, highlighting a coming soon property to the neighbors. This here is our statistic mailer, and our statistic mailer has been a huge part really of, I think, why we have grown the way we've grown. At the end of the day, people want to see numbers, right? When we send out these statistic mailers, we do offer our sellers a spot on the front of it in order to promote their upcoming listing to the neighbor, because our neighborhood is built by other neighbors a lot, word of mouth. Some people are upsizing. Everybody has somebody that they think, hey, they would be a great addition to the neighborhood. So we love to add this one. Now, we did cover statistic mailers before in several classes. This is why I always refer back to the class pass. If you have not ordered yourself our class schedule, make sure you do that. You can do that at, let me get the URL. It's the hyperlocalagent.com/schedule. It is a physical postcard. It gets sent in the mail. It gets to your house. Okay, so you can pin it on the fridge. This is where mine is. So I know exactly what I'm talking about in the next upcoming weeks. We do release this one about 3 or 4 times a year. And it's just really helpful for you to see what's up next. We're schedule driven over here at the Hyperlocal Agent. So by all means, if you don't have one already, the hyperlocalagent.com/schedule, order yourself one and then set the reminder in your calendar. Okay, like clockwork every Monday. All right, for some of you guys that came in late, I said the show notes, I want to show it to you 2 more times. So 1 more time after this one. The show notes here covered a lot of the things we discussed so far. So if you did not grab them yet, please go ahead and grab them. It's really a great way to just go through everything that we are discussing live right now. Make your own notes, scribble it on there. Just text the word box 1 to 844-950-3580. That is our business line for the hyperlocal agent, text line only. So hence text the word box 1, and it'll give you a Google Drive link for you to just grab this little sheet right here. All right. So how many of you ask to be hired when you are sitting down with them? Like, how many of you actually ask, will you hire me to be your agent? I did not. And I want to be honest, I don't not know which training I attended early on that covered this. Okay. This is something I've heard somewhere, and I thought, well, actually makes sense to ask them because I never thought about asking them, which is crazy. Why are we not asking them, will you hire me, right? We give them our spiel, we talk about the pricing, and then we're like, okay, thanks, great, call me. Why are we not asking to be hired? I don't understand. Well, I did it. And when I heard this, I'm like, oh, you know what? I have to ask. Yes. So I built it into my presentation. And I always tell them, I'm going to ask you twice if you're ready to hire me. Okay. So they already know right there is the first time, because this gives me the first opportunity to then transition to pricing. And when I look at pricing, it is part 2 of the presentation, right? So it's like halfway mark. When they say yes, right? I'm like, great, I have my first commitment. When they say no, we then move on to the pricing. Now, pricing, if you paid attention earlier, who is responsible for pricing? Me or the seller? I know for some of you that came late, sorry. We have the seller responsible for pricing, right? We can decide not to take the listing, but at the end of the day, the seller is responsible for pricing. So we're going to transition from here to pricing. And pricing is really all about the options, right? Pricing is subjective. Pricing is driven by the buyers. Pricing is driven by the current market. Pricing is driven by the current world events. Pricing could be driven by the interest rate. And at the end of the day, my job is to simply present all options. So what does it mean? There's pros and cons of pricing a certain way. It's our job to simply talk about that. A seller might want to price their property above market value. Okay, that is an option. Now, you and I may not agree of this being the best option. However, if we've seen anything in 2020 and 2021, it didn't matter, right? What mattered, what a buyer was willing to pay for it. Now, in a regular market, obviously, overpricing properties, that matters. And we highly suggest you don't do it because you have a hyper-local reputation. And the reputation should not be, oh, that's the agent who lists properties and then they sit on the market for 6 months and you have to suffer through 6 months of showings, because that is bad for business as well. So that's one of the options though, right? You can talk about it. Pricing it at market value. That is typically what most of us in a traditional matter try to do. Try to figure out what current market value is, and then the seller is typically pricing either slightly above or slightly below, depending on their motivation. And then option number 3 is price it below market value. That's the one when no traditional seller wants to talk to you about it, right? Because they're like, that's not an option. I love my house. I put a lot of work into it. But regardless or not, it is an option. And I always give the example of, well, you ever heard about a short sale or an auction property? And it always seems like such a good deal. Well, there's a reason for it, because they price it below market value. They attract a lot of interest. They attract a lot of cash offers because that's what they need. They can't get financing, right? There is a way for these sellers to see how it might be right for them, right? It might be right for me, and it might not be right for me. Again, right now, all we're doing is presenting them with their options. And of course, let's end with a free gift to surprise and delight and close the deal. So whichever one you do for your sellers, if it's a service you do already, just simply reposition it as a my gift to you kind of situation. And remember, again, ask to be hired. Told you, I asked more than once. Yes, I'm going to ask again, are you ready to hire me? Because the last objection standing my way was they didn't know how much to get for their house. We just covered that, right? Now it's time for me to ask them again. Now that I covered this, will you hire me? And I do have a couple more things before we wrap this one up, is power of your own presentation. I can't stress enough how important it is. And you see it here right in front of you, right? I could have had these slides created by somebody. I actually go through the process myself, and I move all the things around the way I want them, because I want to know exactly what is coming up, what am I talking about, and this way I deliver this presentation in a better way than if I had never seen this before. Of course, practice, 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 right? And 3, I do suggest bring physical items to show the seller. There's actually a really good mentality behind it that I was made aware of during one of my coaching calls, that if you are showing them physical items that then you're removing from their hands again, right? This has created something tangible for them to feel and see. And if they want it, right, they will place their hand on it. When you are moving it away from them, they're like, hold on a minute, I want this. It's a really, really good sign for you to see that they are committed. And a couple other things. One of the things I've picked up a while ago, it was in one of the books, and I thought it was such a genius move that I started incorporating it, is this really simple question. Out of all the agents, why did you call me? And this simple question, again, came out of a book, and I thought, this is brilliant. This simple question is allowing you to see if you're truly there because they want to hire you, or if you are just there to price check the price a friend gave them. Okay? So out of all the agents, why did you call me? When I ask this question, I oftentimes have people tell me, I see your signs everywhere. You're like the name in the neighborhood that a lot of people are listing with. You were recommended by one of our friends and we trust their judgment, right? This question can lead you to having them close themselves, which is really, really helpful. So again, if you haven't grabbed that one pager yet, there's your last opportunity. It's box 1, okay? And I'm going to show you a little bit more behind the scene after this one. Just want to make sure we stay on this slide for just a second. And that's the word box 1, and that's 844-950-3580. You'll get an autoresponder returned, and it's a Google link, straight up download from a Google Drive. All right, so what else do I want to show you, right? I got a couple closing thoughts for you that I think are really important to making all of this work, because none of whatever I just told you matters if you can't get an appointment, right? Learning how to do a listing presentation is great, but what you need first and foremost is actual seller leads, like real people. Because when we have real people, we can then deliver things like this one. This is a little sneak peek of what we've been doing before appointments for years at this point. It is my seller box. It's a simple little way of me just showing up with a surprise and delight gift. And yes, I did write that book, and we have a couple other goodies we put in there for them. But before I want you to worry about, oh, I need this box and this looks awesome, I need to create one, we need to make sure that you get the leads first, right? So yes, this is a fantastic little add-on to this, and I hope one day, if you don't already have one, you create it, because it is really, really helpful to close the deal this way. But First leads. And how do we do that? Before we go on listing appointments, getting more leads is vital. One of the ways we teach it is inside our mailer bootcamp. This one starts on Mondays. So the next one starts again next Monday. If you are looking to level up your lead flow of real seller leads in your neighborhood, I can't recommend you go through this enough. You have to really understand how to craft messages to get leads in your neighborhood. And that leads me really back into the whole farming thing, right? The hyper-local listing presentation, it can work anywhere. But the reason we talked about it on a hyper-local level was because you can become a listing agent a whole lot faster. And geographic farming has been around for a long time, right? And I want to be straight up with you. Traditional farming and mail is labor intensive. I don't want you to just believe me. Here is proof. This is what I always introduce during Lunch and Learns to people as my 3-day campaign that took 3 adults, 8 hours a day to complete. It's about 1,000 note cards roughly that we did. And what we did with these note cards was a couple things. We printed them. Well, first I had to order the inventory, right? I needed envelopes, I needed the note cards. Then I had to print on them. I had to stuff the envelopes, seal it, stamp it. I had to create the address labels. I had to do the paperwork. I did the trip to the post office. And yes, I still had leftover inventory. I had to store afterwards. So 3 days. Just go back one more. 3 days. 3 grown-up people. I had 2 friends of mine helping 8 hours a day. This is the reality of traditional farming, right? This is the part that nobody wants to talk about. And yes, was it worth it? Absolutely, right? I couldn't recommend it enough. But I also needed to keep up with a lot of other things, just like you do with your real estate business. Keeping up with the seller leads you already have. Keeping up with the buyer leads you already have, checking in with past clients, sending happy birthday messages, sending happy home anniversary messages, creating home anniversary snapshots, sending manual emails for updates, posting on social media, keeping my profiles updated, right? Keeping track of referrals. And by the way, I still had to show houses. Like there's a lot going on, right? Serve your clients. So for me, it personally became a lot more affordable and profitable, and a big reason of why we released and created GEssential, because I wanted something that can build and leverage for me as a solo agent, okay? And that is where really that time freedom came in. And again, more affordable, that helps too. A big reason why is unlimited free printed postcards that are part of GEssential. So yes, unlimited free printed postcards. This was not a typo. This is a big part of what we structured this on, because postcards became our medium of choice to target neighborhoods, right? Now, no more stuffing envelopes, no more trips to the post office, no more paying for postcards, no more paperwork, no more handwriting names. Essentially, all that annoying stuff was with that gone, right? And it's all a matter of the right tool. So having signs like these is certainly helpful when you are trying to become known in a neighborhood. And I want to be honest, I don't get tired of seeing a sign of mine pop up in the neighborhood. But it's just not the business aspect alone. It was also the fact that I didn't want to miss a beat in my own personal life. I didn't want to be on that hamster wheel constantly, right? One of the ways I'm sitting here right now is because of the things put in place that are running on the back end. And those are my 2 little ones. We added one in 2012 and another one in 2018, because I realized time will not stand still. And I just wasn't willing to pick and choose. So I'm a big believer in our children are a big motivator for us to figure things out. They certainly were for me. I always hate when people come to me and they say, I can't because of my kids. It's like, no, you can because of your kids. So they should be the reason that propels us forward to work just a little smarter. Now, the cool thing that happened was getting leads while I sleep, right? I sent out, push of a button, a couple hundred postcards, and I had leads coming in. Leads were coming in, and it was really changing the trajectory of my business. So that's a real screenshot of my phone. And what you see there is incoming leads from a postcard. So we decided, how can we get you to try postcards? How can we get you to see how postcards have evolved into something just so much smarter that now is accessible to all agents? And what we've created is what we call GeoCentral Lite. GeoCentral Lite is the postcard only plan to really get started to send out a postcard to your neighborhood. Okay. It's the easiest way I've encountered direct mail. And I've, again, sent about 60,000 postcards a year on average. I've tried a whole lot of different programs. And what we found is that we needed something that's easy to do as long as somebody is willing to actually log in. Now, GeoCentral Lite is a postcard version only. Okay, there's no trainings, there's nothing that we're doing for you. So it's really the tool, the software, and the technology for you to get unlimited free printed postcards. Yes, they're included. You pay postage. Okay, I always get asked, how do you guys do that? Unlimited free printed postcards. It's like a Costco membership. Essentially, the more you use it, the better off you are. So it's $47 a month. And if you have been thinking about doing postcards to get leads, because again, a listing presentation is only so good, right? If you have actual leads that will call you to sit down with them. So that is geocentral.com/lite-pricing. Again, this is an entry price point for real estate agents who just want to see if postcards will work for their business, just like they worked for mine. And because I'm a big fan of don't start from scratch, we're going to add 6 proven templates that come your way via email once you have it. The 6 were not picked accidentally. They are picked with purpose. And a couple ones here is our version of the Hi, I'm your neighbor. The traditional Hi, I'm your neighbor postcard or letter introduction is just not very good. So we revamped it to really make it about the seller. We do have our QR code one. Our Truth or Dare card is included. A property timeline one we've included too. So for those of you doing listing marketing, it's a fantastic one for a little bit more behind the scene. We do have our Monopoly card included. And then our latest one is a buyer open house pass. I'll tell you how this one works. When you have a new active buyer, right, buyer agreement signed, you will issue them an open house pass in the portal. And that one gets sent to their doorstep. And on the back, it says, hey, snap a picture of this one. So when you are out and about, all you got to do is show the open house agent that card, and they will just scan the QR code. And here's the cool thing that happens. The agent that scans will go to your contact page. That's the way we set up ours. So highly recommend that you're going to have something in place where they can see all your contact info. And then from there, you will get a text message that says, hey, Jane and John Doe are out, right? Just scanned the QR code on this open house pass. So now you know, oh, they're out. Why is that important? Because now you can go back to them in a couple hours and be like, hey, I saw you were out at a couple open houses, anything of interest. Okay. You are staying connected with your clients through this technology, which is really, really cool. All right. So that brings me to what I just covered, smart QR code technology. The smart QR code technology that is part of all of our mailers is not an upcharge. It's not something that you have to upgrade for. It is already on our postcards. So if you get a Lite account, you have access to it. We do have pro members, they have access to it. But at the end of the day, what it does is it just simply gives you a notification when somebody scans that QR code. So You do not have to wait for them to enter a code. You do not have to wait for them to fill out a form, right? It's simply based on the action of scanning. And not only that, but because our postcards ship with first-class mail, they also are eligible for a service called informed delivery. Now, informed delivery, some of you guys may be signed up for it. Informed delivery is a service from the United States Postal Service, USPS. And what they do is just they scan in all the mail that you're about to receive today, and they just send you an email. Now, my postcard, right, that I sent through GeoCentral is not only generating a postcard physical touch, it's also generating an informed delivery email touch from the United States Postal Service if the recipient is opted in. What does it mean? That means more impression time. It means it's one of the only ways that you can leverage one medium to show up in multiple ways. Okay, so I always get excited about how postcards are just so much cooler than Facebook ads, but this is a big part of why. So that is GeoCentral Lite. Again, here's what you can expect. I just want to go through that because we really want to make sure that you can send high impact mailers to generate leads and listings while at the same time maximize your marketing budget. So what happens is you're going to receive an SMS on a GeoCentral Lite account creation. You're going to complete your registration and you're going to add a credit card for your postage charges. Postage follows USPS pricing. So a first class stamp and a postcard stamp. Okay, those are our two pricing models following current USPS pricing. You're going to get a welcome email from me. And then you're going to also get a secondary email with templates about an hour later. I just want you to log in first, get settled, so we're not bombarding you with everything at once. Okay, so easy enough. So that's geocentral.com/light-pricing. It is $47 a month, which gives you the unlimited free printed postcards, the smart QR code technology, the digital impressions, and the 6 templates with it as well. So if you have been wondering, okay, but postcards are expensive, right? Because these postcard companies out there are trying to make a profit. So hence they upcharge you per card. Or what if you are unable to track your results? So you actually never know if it's working, right? Oh, did the mailer hit? Did it not hit? I know when my postcard hit the mailboxes because I do get notifications. If you're finding it hard to generate quality leads with mailers, it is maybe easier for you to just focus in on a neighborhood with ideal seller avatars. And if you're overwhelmed trying to keep up with all the things a real estate agent has to do, it might just be time for some more leverage, right? Are you running your real estate business or is your real estate business running you? So what could this path look like? You're going to join GeoCentral Lite, right? That's just the dabble your toe. You're going to unlock the unlimited free printed postcards, and the smart QR code technology is part of that. You have unlimited automations in there too. I always get asked, is there a limit on anything? No, there's not. There is also a basic design catalog in it. I personally don't think it's very good, but it will do in the beginning as you get to know the system. We personally create in Canva. I'm a big Canva fan. There's also shops like Etsy or anything like that that you can design in from. Remember, you do cover postage on USPS rates. You don't handle the postage, right? You don't do anything with the mail, but this is why there is a hyper wallet that is taking postage out of it for every piece you're sending. You're going to follow the steps to get up your GeoCentral account up and running, right? Put your headshot in it and everything. And from there is launch your first campaign, literally today. So building a trusted local brand is the goal. You're going to watch your community presence grow, your lead flow stabilize, and your reputation soar, all while saving time, reducing stress, and building a business you're proud of. Not just can you use it, obviously, for what we've discussed today to get leads, but you can also use it for your past clients. Highly recommend you see the versatility with it. I published multiple books on all of these topics. So by all means, right, check those out. But A lot of times I have agents ask, well, right now is not a good time, or I'll wait till next year. The best time to get started was 30 years ago, right? This is when postage was like 34 cents or something like that. The second best time is now. Just like Facebook ads have increased the gap on how much something is, postage is continuing to go up as well, right? The gap that you see, and I'm sure we will eventually see over $1 a piece, but the gap you see is one of those things that will continue to increase until the barrier of entry is so high that whoever got started with it has an advantage. Okay, I'm a big believer of that is what will happen with it. I don't think it will go away. I think mail is here to stay for a reason. One of the reasons being our attention span is just so much better with physical items. But again, that's what I would do to get started, to get leads in your neighborhood. That is GeoCentral on our postcard only plan. Again, it's the tool that makes it work for me personally. There's no trainings on it that we do. There's a help and support section to get you started and how to do something. But if that was me trying to find a way to be in charge of my own business so I can go on these listing presentations, this is what we currently do. So I wanted to make sure we're ending the class with this one. So thank you so much for staying a couple extra minutes today. I hope this was helpful. I hope you went through your listing presentation. I want to leave this slide up for a couple more minutes. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you for another Lunch and Learn next week.
Yeah. Out in the world of real estate, agents hustle, staying up late, trying to farm, trying to grow, but time slips away, moving too slow. Then came a vision, a brand new way. Janine's has to pave the way. No more stress, no more chase. Let automation take your place. GeoCentral, the future is here. Helping agents far and near. Get more leads, grow with these. While you do what you please. No more knocking, no more strain. Farming made simple, no time in vain. Oh. Birthday wishes, home and nips. Stay in touch with just a click. Smart QR codes, templates too. Marketing's handled all for you. Why waste hours by lose sleep when GeoCentral runs it deep? Follow-ups that keep you seen. Turn prospects into dreams. Follow GeoCentral, the future is here. Helping agents far and near. Get more leads, grow with ease. While you do what you please. No more knocking, no more strain. Farming made simple, no time in vain. Go. Yeah. So if you're tired of the old school grind, let GeoCentral ease your mind. More connections, more success, less time wasted, no more stress. Janine's mission, clear and true. Helping agents just like you. GeoCentral's got your back. Time to win, no looking back. Knocking, no more strain. Farming made simple, no time